Hey, welcome to this week's edition of Reb Talk. I'm David Kellum, and we're looking forward to having three more outstanding guests for you this week. Well, these things keep rolling along pretty fast. We're moving through the summer here. July just around the corner, and we hope everybody's looking forward to the 4th of July. I wore my USA baseball hat, Keith. I think this goes way, way back, like when Ben McDonald played for him or something like that. But anyway, the people listening to the podcast can't see that. People watching, I have to cover up some degree of ugliness, that's for sure. But we have our athletic director, Keith Carter. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, DK. Glad to be with you again.
Yep, a lot of things happening this summer. Usually in the sports world, it's kind of cool. Everybody chills for a few months, and then we crank it back up. But it's been an ongoing fluid situation in a lot of different areas. We want to visit with you about some of those. But one of the things that has taken place is you are getting people kind of back in the office periodically too now, right?
We are, yeah. There's a little more activity around the building, and I kind of snuck up here a few times during the quarantine. We were supposed to be at home, and just found it was a little easier to work in the office. And a lot of times I was the only one up here. But it is nice to have some people back in the office. You get to back to some sense of normalcy with the way you communicate, and obviously still doing a lot of Zoom and different things, but it is nice to, go into the conference room with your mask on and have a conversation with someone. We had a meeting this afternoon. We had 4 or 5 people in there, and it was just kind of refreshing to see people in the flesh, and so, but it's been good. Obviously student athletes have been coming back since June 1st, and, had some ups and downs there with COVID and different things. Again, our protocols and procedures have been really, really good. But had that spike there a couple of weeks ago, and now we're seeing our numbers kind of go back down. So feel good about where we are, and I know the voluntary workouts have been going well. Our student athletes are so excited to be back in our facilities and, seeing their buddies and just getting back to what they love to do, playing sports, and I think that was taken away from them, and they're just appreciating being back in Oxford and back in our facilities. So certainly we'll continue to try to do it the right way and be safe and really kind of look at the new information. Obviously it's a lot of new things out, a lot of cases spiking around not only our state but different places, and so we're making sure that we're keeping health and safety at the forefront of the decisions that we make.
Yeah, and I know there's a national narrative, Keith, about do you live with it, just say dang the torpedoes and go, but people are dying from it, and so it's got to be where this continue to be some degree of safety. Let me ask you, particularly to Ole Miss, of the cases that we've had, has everybody pretty much recovered okay, or there's been some serious issues?
Yeah, I think for the most part, everyone has been good. We haven't had any hospitalizations, which has been good. We have had, student athletes and staff that have had symptoms, and some have handled it differently than others. Some have gone through 14 days of quarantine and not had any symptoms. And we've also had a few others that have been a little bit sick, and a couple that have been, pretty sick. And so, I think we've kind of had all areas of that. But again, Shannon and Dr. Crowther and our medical team have just been fantastic, making sure they're taking care of all of those, whether it's student athletes or staff, and making sure that they have all the resources they need to not only survive it and get better, but, come back strong and get back into their normal routine. So, again, we're kind of taking it case by case and day by day. And, I know everybody's kind of doing that right now, but we feel good about where we are, and certainly, the well-being of our student athletes.
I heard you on a couple of interviews previous about, the model that we're looking at for football. It could be anything, full capacity, half capacity, less than that may be kind of difficult financially, but any new decisions at this point? Is it still a lot of discussion trying to figure out what it's going to look like with the stadium and the Grove and all those things?
Yeah, I would say we're pretty much in the same place as we've been the past couple of weeks. I would anticipate probably some type of decisions here over the next couple of weeks, whether it come from the SEC level or even the state level, talking about what capacities could look like, what stadiums could look like. The SEC, I know at some point will want to talk about, what our season looks like. Are we going to start on time? At some point you have to say, we're either starting or we're not starting. And we're kind of getting up to that point. It's the 1st of July now. We talked about this date and kind of this first couple of weeks in July for a long time, and we're here. And so, we're going to have to decide if we're going to start on September 6th, or are we going to push it back, or are we going to try to play football in the spring. That's a topic of conversation that we've talked about, over the past several months. That's kind of popped up, a little more here in the last few weeks. But again, we're going to have to start making those decisions soon. I know our fans and our donors are ready to know something. Our student athletes are ready. I'm ready. We're all ready to kind of know what our target is and what our goal is. So I would look for the next, 2 or 3 weeks to really hopefully have some information that we can start working toward, and maybe something a little more concrete.
Keith, does it help us on the college level that the NBA coming back, Major League Baseball in a shortened season coming back? Just sometimes you just need maybe the pro side to take a step. Is that a helpful thing?
I think it is. You look around, the PGA Tour is playing, and they've had some issues, but you got NASCAR going, you got soccer going, and a lot of different things that are going. And now with MLB and NBA, like you mentioned, that we monitor all of that. And I think that more that can play, and hopefully they have good scenarios. Hopefully they go out and play and cases don't spike, and the fans that are allowed in at some point, that goes smoothly. But certainly all of those things are good for college athletics to monitor. And, again, as the NFL starts to do their training camps and has preseason games and those type of things, all of that is very important. But, it's changed so much over even just the past couple of weeks, because I think everybody was so optimistic in early June about where we were with cases. And I'm not just talking about in the sports world, but just generally in our nation, where we were with cases, and they kind of plateaued. And then all of a sudden, this spike, and everybody's, you see different states and different locales that are, pulling back a little bit, and that may happen here in Mississippi too. Who knows? But we'll keep working hard, and I think for us, it's important again that we kind of get some concrete information here over the next couple of weeks, and we'll push forward from there.
With the ultimate desire being as normal as we can play on time, play all the games, and try to bring as many people as we can, right?
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think that's important, and that's where, again, if we start pushing towards September and, realize for some reason that it's just not going to make sense to play, do you wait till the spring to where, maybe you've got treatments that are better, maybe even a vaccine at that point. And maybe then, instead of trying to figure out how 25% or 50% capacity works, maybe you have a full capacity at that point. So I think all options are on the table, but I keep going back to it. I do think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we're going to have to make those type of decisions. So I have a feeling those conversations are going to be happening a lot, here in the next few days.
Keith, big weekend in our state this past weekend, and both branches of the legislature voted to retire the existing state flag. You and most of the universities across the state went down, took coaches, spoke to folks. I just want to kind of talk to you about that experience. Obviously, everybody for changing the Confederate battle flag in the corner of the state flag associated with the athletic people that showed up down there. But I want to start first with just the experience itself and the importance of that moment.
Well, it was fantastic, David. I'm not sure even going down there that day, I understood what we were doing, and kind of what it meant. And when I got there and you see, all the other institutions that are represented, and you just see you're talking to legislators and, different people there in the Capitol, and just the impact that it made. And, you talk to some of those folks down there, and they use the word historic. This is a historic day. This has never happened before, that this amount of coaches and administrators would show up. And it just shows you how important it was. It was really, really important. And, I think for us, that was on Thursday, and it was right down. The legislature, you could tell they're tired. They're ready to go home, but they understand how important this topic was. And it was very meaningful to have conversations with the Speaker of the House and Lieutenant Governor and different area representatives. And hopefully, ultimately it passed and got done. So hopefully what we did, helped sway some votes and do some things and push it in the right direction. But, I learned a lot about politics. I learned a lot about, things I did not know about. And that was insightful and good as well. But I thought Coach Davis and Coach McCray Pinson did just a tremendous job with their comments there at the podium. And it was just a great day. I think Kermit I saw a quote from him that he said it was one of the most impactful things he's ever been a part of in his career. And, it's one of those that really transcends sports. I know sports was one of the things that hopefully kind of pushed this thing over the top, but, this is something that we'll all look back and tell our grandkids. And, we were there that day. We helped implement change in Mississippi. And, we'll be part of history. We'll be a part of the history book someday. And that's really cool. And so I think it's great. Our student athletes are pumped, about the fact that it's coming down, and we're gonna put a flag up that's more inclusive and really represents more of our total population than the old flag. So you really can't say enough about it, but it was just a great day. Was really happy to represent Ole Miss as we went down, and it was just something that I think is really important, and obviously will have long-lasting effects.
I thought Kermit very well spoken, from the heart, native Mississippian, been associated with multiple schools really across the state, and I just thought he did a wonderful job speaking. Like Nikki too. Nikki was incredible, and it was nice to have both of them kind of be the front people in this for the athletic world.
Oh, they were great. They were great. And, Kermit got up there and didn't have a note in his hand, like you said, kind of spoke from his heart, and just did a great job. And then, Coach McCray Pinson, she was fantastic as well. I'm not sure we could have had two better representatives of our two universities to do that. And so the words they spoke, and then the speaker got up right behind them and just kind of hammered home, a lot of the important reasons why this is the time and why we should do this now. And, again, I just applaud what happened down in Jackson over the weekend, people having conversations, and ultimately understand that there's some constituencies that you're trying to, play to and do those type of things. But when it comes down to doing the right thing, that always wins. And I think that's what we saw here in our state, and people did the right thing. And that's why I'm proud of this state, and why I look forward to the future that we have.
Well, and the unity too, Keith, is amazing. I mean, you got Democrats and Republicans coming together. You've got Ole Miss and State and all the schools coming together, black, white. It was really, really neat to see people kind of dropping their differences and pulling together.
Well, and again, that's what this is all about. I mean, that's what the root of this is all about, is that we all want to be seen as one. We all want to be unified. We all want to have the same opportunities. We all want to live in a state that we feel comfortable. And, I think that's a great step. And you go down and you just see so many people that maybe on other topics don't agree, maybe on other topics, wouldn't cross the aisle, if you will. But this one made a lot of sense. And I think that, man, you just could feel it down there that day. And I felt really confident as we left the Capitol that day that this was going to happen. There were so many positive vibes and a lot of momentum. And then obviously, Saturday and Sunday, we saw the votes happen. And I guess we're recording this on Tuesday at 5:30. I guess the governor has signed, to make it official. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit early with the 4th of July weekend coming up. Hey, a little while ago, you did something else really cool. Eli Manning's number 10 is going to be retired. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. And, if you saw the video, we snuck out to his house, and Archie and Abby were accomplices. They helped us with that one to set it all up. Eli, I don't think he had a clue we were coming. And, it was one of those things. We had some really cool plans. We were actually going to get him to come and throw the first pitch at a baseball game and have almost ambush him at the mound and kind of let him know with some of his former teammates and his family. But obviously with COVID, we weren't able to do that. And we were able to catch him at his home right before they went back to New Jersey for a little while. But it's great. Obviously well-deserved. I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about Eli and just the things he's meant to our university, and obviously a great pro career. And, I left that meeting, and I do this every time I'm around the Mannings. I just leave when I'm from their presence just thinking what good people they are. They're just good people. They're down to earth. Eli is just so chill, and you just love that about him. So happy for them, and we'll do it right. Hopefully, if we're playing football on the Auburn weekend, we will do a big ceremony and make sure that we honor Eli and make sure that number is there forever.
You're so right about them, especially if they're together, because Peyton's got that intensity thing going, but a great personality. Cooper may be one of the funniest people I've ever met. Used to be even my roving reporter in Rep Talk several years ago, and just stole the show every night. He was hilarious, but it's a great family that's given a lot to not only the sport of football, but just to our society in general.
Yeah, no question. And I just think there's a lot to learn from a family like that, has every reason to kind of, maybe have an attitude or feel like maybe they're a little better than others. And, it's just, they're such good people. And, that Archie and Olivia just did such a fantastic job with those boys. And you can see that now they're doing it with their families. And that's just what it's all about. I mean, that's what Ole Miss is all about. That's what, I went home and thought about how I want my children to be raised and turn out like those boys, because they're good people and humble and they do things the right way. So certainly excited, for next fall and hopefully we can get there that Auburn weekend and do it right.
Hey, another scheduling news from football too, a home and home with Charlotte. That's an interesting one.
It is. And it's along the same lines as the South Alabama series. And, I know it's not as conventional as maybe we've scheduled in the past, but again, we're looking for maybe 2 or 3 of those opportunities over the next 10 years to, again, do a home and home with a group of 5 in a location that, we have some Ole Miss folks and we recruit in and those type of things, all the similar things we talked about with Mobile. But, it's a big money saver. You don't have to pay the guarantee for them to come here. And again, we want to make sure that the matchups are good and all of that. But it's something we won't look to do too often. But, we're going to try to do that. And Charlotte is one of those that fit that profile.
Yeah, no doubt. Great area, too. I got a daughter who lives in North Carolina. She's still there. She said, "You're not going to retire before that." I said, "Well, maybe not now since I get to run by and see you." But it is funny how they're kind of way out down the road a little bit. But that's a unique one for sure. Hey, you mentioned we're taking this a little bit early, and I know that you're on the eve of actually going to Washington, which will be tomorrow. So it will have already happened when we air Reb Talk. But just tell our fans in general what that's all about.
Well, I've got a big honor tomorrow, David, to go to D.C. and testify in front of the Commerce Committee, which is chaired by one of our senators, Roger Wicker, who is a dear friend of Ole Miss. And I think he had a little bit to do with me being the one sitting in the chair and getting the opportunity to talk about it. I'm the only AD in the country that will be there that gets to talk about it. Commissioner Sankey will be there from the SEC. There's a representative from the NCAA and a couple of other witnesses. But really excited about the opportunity. Name, image, and likeness is something that was really and is still a hot topic, but it's kind of taken the back burner a little bit with everything going on in our country with COVID and some of the racial unrest and those type of things. But NIL is something that really could shape the future of what college athletics looks like. And so we've been doing a lot of prep work over the last few days, and I look forward to going up there tomorrow and hopefully representing Ole Miss well and being there with Senator Wicker.
Well, and it's a topic, of course, we'll do some discovery with you a little bit more down the road, because you're right, it could really impact, what we might see in college athletics a little bit later. Hey, 4th of July weekend, what are the Carters going to do?
We're probably just going to be hanging out in Oxford. I mean, we're going to be here, and we're actually going to maybe get out of town a little bit next week and do some vacation. But we'll be in Oxford and may wet a line, do some fishing, maybe jump in the swimming pool, but try to find a little time away. And in our world, DK, unfortunately and fortunately, you never can really turn it off. But it'll be nice to be hanging out with the family a little bit and hopefully recharging the batteries.
Yep, I'm headed to North Carolina, see the oldest daughter, so I'll go check out Charlotte, make sure it's what it should be when we get up there in 2026.
There you go. Yeah, do the pre-site. Go check it all out and make sure that all the hotels are good and we'll be ready to roll. Check out some restaurants and get it all ready for us.
Hey, but we do want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July from Ole Miss Athletics, and Keith and his staff are working extremely hard, and hopefully as we move on, we'll have better news as we get closer to the football season.
Yeah, we will. I know that we will, and I truly believe that there's much better times ahead. And I'm not sure that we might have to go through a few more hard times before we get to those good times. But that's what I love about this place. I know we're all going to band together and certainly get through this together. But we're going to keep working, and like you said, we're going to work as if we're going to play on September 6th with a full stadium, and from there we're going to work backwards and do what we need to do. But we'll be prepared, and I'll be honest. I can't wait to get people back to Oxford. I miss people. I miss activity. I miss, shaking someone's hand. That's been hard. Even with the Corona bump that you do, I'm kind of tired of that.
Yeah,
So
me too.
We got to get back to normal at some point, but certainly we got to do it in the right time frame and make sure we do it in a safe and healthy way. But we're going to get there.
No doubt. Those of us that live here that like the time period when there was less traffic, even we flipped to the other side. We want everybody back. Keith, thank you so much for being with us this week. Hey, when we come back, our middle segment, we've introduced you a whole lot of new staff members, new assistant football coaches, and DJ Durkin's coming up next on Reb Talk.
That's the sound of rush hour. Hello, recess.
Mom!
Work from home is a lot of work. Even though we're a little further apart right now, we're still in this together. Regions is donating this ad to local food banks to shine a light on them as they feed our neighbors in need. Learn how you can help or get help at regions.com/foodbank. Regions Bank, member FDIC.
Question. Would you rather refuel while earning Exxon and Mobil Rewards Plus points on every gallon? Or would you rather refuel while sitting through my sales pitch for an exciting new timeshare opportunity? Interesting. You'd prefer the points. Well, that's proof. People prefer earning and redeeming with Exxon and Mobil Rewards Plus over owning a condo that's actually my shed. Earn points in-store and at the pump with Exxon and Mobil Rewards Plus. Sign up today. Terms and conditions may apply. Available at participating Exxon and Mobil locations.
Right now is the best time to upgrade your appliances and lower your energy bill with Smart Choice rebates from Atmos Energy. As an Atmos Energy customer in Mississippi, you'll save up to $450 when you buy select high-efficiency natural gas appliances. So use less energy and help keep our planet green. Call 877-616-6267 or visit atmosenergy.com/smartchoicems for details. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
We need the fans, alumni, former players all united and everybody on the same page, which is to win championships. We didn't come here to be good. All right, that's not why we're here today. We came here to be great.
Hey Rebel Nation, this is head football coach Lane Kiffin. Let's lock the bot Saturdays this fall. Become a season ticket holder today. Visit OleMissTix.com. That's OleMissTix.com. Hotty toddy.
Having the right equipment is critical for any successful farm operation, and we can help with that. Your focus is maximizing production. Our focus is trust and loyalty. I'm Bobby Spinks with Mississippi Land Bank. If you make your living on the farm, this is your place. Since 1916, Mississippi Land Bank has worked alongside farmers and farm communities in North Mississippi. Whatever equipment upgrades you need, this is your place. Visit us at mslandbank.com.
Hotty toddy Ole Miss. Now for more Reb Talk, here's David Callum.
And welcome back to Reb Talk. David Callum again with you here. Had a good visit with our athletic director, Keith Carter. Now we're visiting with one of our new coaches. Again, we've been doing this through the relaunch of Reb Talk, introducing you to a lot of new faces at Ole Miss, not only on the football staff, but other staffs as well. And there've been a bunch, to say the least. And this segment, we're going to jump back into football and visit with DJ Durkin, who's co-defense coordinator and linebackers coach at Ole Miss, originally from Youngstown, Ohio. He was a GA at Notre Dame for a while and was coached at Stanford, Michigan, head coach at Maryland, previous stops at Florida from 2010 to 2014. DJ, we always got to throw in an SEC tie. I mean, it's important when you,
That's right.
when you get into this league. Of course, as defense coordinator at Florida, for those of you interested in the SEC tie from 2013-14, the Gators had consecutive top 15 rankings in total defense and 15th best mark in the country in 2014, 8th best in 2013. Of course, Florida's been an outstanding program through the years in our league. He played at Bowling Green, was a starter at defensive end, outside linebacker, and led his team in sacks in 98. And DJ and his wife Sarah have one daughter, Abigail, and a son, Luke. How old did you say they were, DJ?
Yeah, Abigail's 10 and Luke is 7.
10 and 7. Trouble's just underway. Yeah, and I noticed you're in a vehicle somewhere. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm up in a little family lake property up here in Virginia, in the mountains, man. It's beautiful. So this is usually where we spend our time. We get time away in the summer. This is where you can find us.
Oh, neat. Cool. And, of course, 4th of July weekend is coming up this weekend. Wish everybody happy 4th of July. Well, first of all, DJ, just welcome to Reb Talk in general. You know, I've talked to a lot of staff members already on the football staff. And just as an opening thought, you've been involved with several staffs through the year. It just seems like this is a really good group.
I agree. I don't know how many times I've said it to others, but I agree with you. I mean, from top to bottom, great group of guys. There were several guys I was familiar with, some that I've worked with before, and then also several that I had not, and just knew from afar. And guys, you kind of follow those careers from afar, and you're so excited to be with them. And then now you get around guys and see how people work, what they do, and I tell you what, it's I throw up our staff against anyone.
The opportunity for you to come join Lane Kiffin here at Ole Miss, kind of talk about that and how the two you got together.
Again, a little bit following from afar. I've watched Lane in his career. I've coached against him as a defensive coordinator at Florida when he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama. So I know how talented he is as a play caller in offenses. And I mean, I think his track record speaks for itself. We have a lot of mutual friends and people in common. And so when the opportunity out, man, I was all over it. Really excited.
You know, we mentioned the Florida connection, the SEC tie-in. Tell us a little bit about your first stint in the league and the excitement about coming back to what we think, obviously, is you've been in some other areas, but this is one of the best leagues in the country.
That's right. It's kind of like a rite of passage as a coach or anyone to be in the SEC. It's as the saying goes, it just means more. I think that's true. And you know, we had our family and I previous stop in the SEC at Florida. We absolutely loved our time there and in the conference. It's just the excitement and the backing and support that goes into football in this conference is amazing. It's really, you really can't compare it to anything else. So again, when that opportunity to work with Coach as well as come back to the SEC, I mean, it was like too good to be true.
Coach, what makes it so demanding? I mean, you've been in other places across the country. There's good football everywhere, but what makes the SEC so doggone demanding?
You know, I mean, I think it's several things. I mean, obviously, when that's a double-edged sword. When you have such tremendous support and people interested in loving it, like there's extra, and on doing well and winning. Okay, which is fine. We all know that. And then I think the biggest probably difference as a coach is the level of recruiting. You know, recruiting is no matter where you are, it's a 24/7 job, but it's that turned up a couple notches here in the SEC. I mean, people understand that this is where most teams come recruit this part of the country anyways, and you're right in it. And so, your competitors, it's a long list. It's not one or two teams you got to beat in a certain area. It's a long list. And in order to do that, you've really got to be on it every day.
Florida, Georgia probably top in the East for the last several years. Alabama, in the West, that's the first team obviously you think about with all the success at Alabama. LSU jumped in there next year. We'll see if they have some kind of sustainability. But how can an Ole Miss get to that elite status in the West?
Well, I mean, I look at things from the top down, like the amount of leadership we have from Keith Carter. He's phenomenal, and he is, putting things in place and getting the right decisions to get us at that level. And then Coach Kiffin, he coached Alabama. He's coached. He's won this conference many times as an assistant. I think it's good to be part of those things. Those are learning experiences that you can take and bring with you to your next opportunity. And so, we have the right people here, great support. We mentioned our staff earlier, and now for us, it's okay. Like we have guys, we got to get trained up and get on page and keep recruiting. But I don't see any reason why we couldn't here at Ole Miss. I mean, we have what it takes and what you need.
Well, and you've been one of the top recruiters in the country. This state per capita has really got some incredible players here, and the attraction to the SEC, I'm sure, makes recruiting not easier by any means, but attractive for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that is one of those things. When you're competing with some schools that are not, that's usually something that gets your leg up pretty fast, and then it often comes down to then, okay, now what other SEC schools do we compete with and beat them on that? But I think kids recognize. I mean, I know this because this is a stat we've been throwing out. The last 14 NFL drafts in a row, the SEC has led in drafts. That's 14 in a row. So that's not a fluke or, happenstance. That's real. So, when you're recruiting at this level, the kids recruiting all have an aspiration to go play in the NFL, which is great. So obviously when you look at that, you want to compete at the highest level. I think it's pretty clear where that is.
We're visiting with assistant coach DJ Durkin on the Ole Miss football staff, co-defense coordinator, linebacker coach. How's the co-D coordinator going to work with Chris Partridge, coach? And also, I think he's got safeties, and you got linebackers and all. But how is it going to kind of unfold?
Those relationships are always unique, and I've been doing this long enough to know that if it's a coach situation, you have two guys that are on the same page and work well together. And Chris and I can be better. We worked together at a previous stop back up in Michigan, so I've known Chris for a long time. I have tremendous respect for him as a coach, and so we see things very similarly. And so I think that'll work just fine. And really entire defensive staff. It's a great group of guys that, Adams coached our D line. He's been around, been in this conference for a long time, does a tremendous job. Terrell Buckley with our corners. The guy's one of the greatest corners ever played the position. Again, he's an in-state guy, Lake Deke. He's coaching this conference. So you just talk about that, and then Blake Giddings, our special teams player, is also working on our defense. Blake was a graduate assistant in back at Florida. And he played at the highest. He was a 4-year starter at Texas, and so when you look at our staff as a whole on defense, I think it's really good. We are all on the stage in it together, and that's the way it should be.
Coach, talk about the linebackers. I know this is unusual deal. Normally you get a spring, and you get to a new staff gets to meet all their guys, and you have to Zoom with them. But I know you've had some time with them. But I look at the list of names, Lakeith Henry and Sam Williams, Jaquez Jones, and others, Momo being healthy and coming back. It just seems like that's a pretty good room.
I think so. The thing that stands out to me so far is the leadership from that group. You mentioned a couple guys that they have experience playing. The good thing is that they act like it, and they're helpful with other guys. They're doing a great job being leaders of the group. Like now, the workouts is voluntary. Mm-hmm. And so as coaches, we can't be there. We can't be there taking attendance, who's doing what. And these guys have really done a great job of taking leadership upon themselves. So, this is our team, and it is, and getting other guys there. So I love our group from that standpoint. Obviously, I've liked to have been on the field with them by now. We haven't been, but, it's the circumstance we're dealing with. I say them all the time, let's just be the best that we can be right now, because everyone's in the same – it's not like we're behind. We're all – the same thing, and so let's be the best Zoom meeting group we can possibly be. And when we're able to, as we ease back into workouts and practice and everything else, let's just keep whatever time they give us. Let's do the best we can with it. And I really think that they bought into that and done a great job leading that amongst their teammates.
What are the duties of the linebackers in this defense that we're going to see with Ole Miss this year?
First and foremost is they're the quarterbacks of the defense. They've got to be great communicators, because we're going to play multiple fronts. We're going to play multiple coverages. I really believe in today's football, with all the spread offenses and teams, trying to get you to show your hand and have the coordinator, look back, make another call. And you can't just sit in one thing and play. You just can't do it. So we're going to multiple. And in order to do that, you've got to do a great job communicating on the field. That's really what defense is all about, because you're getting a call from the sideline. You're reacting to the offense lines up. And control the tempo. They're in control of the formations out of the line. So you got to have guys that communicate well. And at the linebacker position, you're in the middle of it all. You got to communicate up to the D line. You got to talk to the guys behind you in the secondary. And so that's first and foremost. And then obviously from there, it's just guys that have nose for the ball, man, run, hit, tackle. And that's what our linebackers need to do.
Well, we look forward to it, and I know you got to be getting excited that maybe we're going to open this season. We keep praying, and hopefully we'll be okay and can get this season going in some form or fashion, hopefully as close to normal as possible.
No doubt. I really believe it. Obviously, I have a biased opinion being involved in it as coaches, players. We all want this about as bad as it can be, but I think like our country needs it. I think it's a great thing. Like we need live sports. It's a part of our fiber, man. And so certainly we continue to move in that direction and get back out there on the field.
Well, thank you very much. Hey, we're glad to have your family in Oxford. Hopefully you're enjoying our community. And I know you've made the rounds in this league before. I don't know if you guys played Ole Miss when you were at Florida, though, but we sure are glad to have you in Oxford.
Yeah, thanks. I tell you, my family, I love it here. What a great place. It's been so welcoming. My kids are thrilled and excited. You know how those moves go. Sometimes that could be hitters. They love it here. So this has been tremendous for us.
All right, DJ. Thank you, man. Look forward to meeting you when you get back.
All right,
DJ,
definitely. Take care.
All right, man. DJ Durkin. When we come back, we're going to wrap up this week's Reb Talk with Bryan Simmons, one of our athletic counselors. That's next.
In sports, success is measured in the number of points scored, in games won, and in championships earned. At Shelter Insurance, we measure success in the quality of our products and services, in how we support our communities, in being there when you need us most. In fact, 9 out of 10 people surveyed with a claim would recommend Shelter to a friend. To find out how Shelter can be there for you, visit shelterinsurance.com. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
Hi, this is Gant Boone with Oxford University Bank. You've heard about our Kasasa Cash checking account paying 2.5% interest on balances up to $50,000. That interest could, depending on your balance, pay for an unlimited cell phone plan for you and one other, or pay for 2 gas fill-ups per month for an average-sized gas tank, or maybe a nice meal on the square is what you desire. Regardless, this is real money we will give you for doing 3 things you are probably already doing. So stop in today or visit us online at liveoxfordbankoxford.com. Oxford University Bank, member FDIC.
Quoted as annual percentage yield.
Hey Rebel Nation, this is head football coach Lane Kiffin. Let's lock the bot Saturdays this fall. Become a season ticket holder today. Visit OleMissTix.com. That's OleMissTix.com. Hotty toddy.
For over 50 years, Mississippi Asthma and Allergies board-certified team of allergists have treated patients in Mississippi by identifying triggers that cause patients trouble and creating personalized treatment plans. Now with offices in Jackson, Ridgeland, Meridian, d'Iberville, and Oxford, it's like we're right next door when you need us. Treating adults, infants, teens, and Ole Miss students. Find the Mississippi Asthma and Allergy Clinic near you at msaac.com. Mississippi Asthma and Allergy, helping Mississippi live life to the fullest.
That's the sound of rush hour. Hello, recess. Work from home is a lot of work. Even though we're a little further apart right now, we're still in this together. Regions is donating this ad to local food banks to shine a light on them as they feed our neighbors in need. Learn how you can help or get help at regions.com/foodbank. Regions Bank, member FDIC.
As we navigate the COVID-19 crisis, O'Reilly Auto Parts is dedicated to serving you. We've been deemed an essential business, so our doors will stay open. We encourage you to buy online, then pick up curbside. Together, we're committed to getting through this.
Hotty Toddy Ole Miss. Now for more Reb Talk, here's David Callum.
Hello and welcome back to Reb Talk. We're in our 3rd segment of this week, and hopefully everybody I got my USA hat on here, Brian, as we got the 4th of July coming up this weekend. Awesome. But somebody was picking me the other day, said, you wear like a different hat on Reb Talk every week. I said, well, I've got like 700, and my wife throws it away after every Reb Talk. We got so many. But we're honored today to visit with Bryan Simmons, who's an athletic counselor at Ole Miss, and he joined the Ole Miss Athletic Health and Sports Performance staff in 2019. He's an athletics counselor. We're going to kind of talk about what he does. You know, we've had a chance to visit with a lot of unique and people that you really haven't heard from over the years. But Bryan is a licensed certified clinical social worker, licensed in the state of Mississippi, and a member of the National Association of Social Workers as well, and earned his undergraduate, graduate degrees in social work from Ole Miss, and specializes in alcohol and other drug abuse, trauma, and other mental health disorders as well. And he's worked in inpatient, outpatient, AOD centers with both youth and adults. So I'm really looking forward to getting his, not only his thoughts about Ole Miss athletes, but just us as a general population as well. Originally from Kalamazoo, Michigan, ended up all the way down here at Ole Miss. I don't know how he did that, but did a good job finding the Ole Miss, and moved to Oxford in 1995, courtesy of the Marine Corps. He was assigned to Ole Miss ROTC back in the day and retired reconnaissance Marine gunnery sergeant. Some people still call him Gunny. They still call you Gunny?
Yes,
Bryan?
sir.
Yes, that's it, huh?
Term of endearment.
Good deal. He and his wife, Ann, have 2 married children, David and Naomi. Bryan, first of all, just hi, and great to have you on. I know you said you've never really done an interview of this nature, so we're going to be gentle and kind and give you some easy questions, to say the least. But we're living in some strange times right now, aren't we?
We sure are. Nothing like it before ever.
I want to ask you, just from a personal standpoint, how has your family and your closest people dealt with, sheltering at home?
I think we're all taking it pretty serious. My daughter continues to work for Paws Animal Hospital, and of course they go in, but they're doing the masks and social distancing. And wife and I have been both working from home using Zoom exclusively to do our work. And our son is up in Massachusetts, and he's currently involved in an academy to become a prison guard. He'll graduate the end of this month. And they've got them doing all their stuff in masks and social distanced. So we're taking it serious.
You've had an interesting career being, a military guy and then jumping into social work as well. Kind of tell us about your path.
Well, I was a bit of a troubled youth. Came from a kind of a home that both parents lived there, but you might as well call it a broken home because they didn't even live in the same room. It was a difficult home. I ended up in the Marine Corps at the insistence or advice, if you will, from a judge, and thought I'd serve a 3-year sentence, and ended up staying for 20. Really fell in love with that whole camaraderie, esprit de corps, living and working alongside some guys that were just like me and just eager to have a home and a good bunch of people. I thought I'd be in forever.
Well, and then to move into the social work world, you actually got your degree in that, right?
That's correct. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I was what you would call lost and kind of hopeless. I had mental health issues, depression especially, some PTSD, and alcoholism pretty bad, and got some help for that and started talking to the VA about school and really didn't know what I wanted to do. And we landed on this social work thing because it talked about helping other people kind of find what I found.
Well, and now kind of on the other side of the fence, but some people are really good in this area because they do have some real life experiences. Have you reached back and helped others by, talking about the negative things that were in your path?
Life experiences shared tend to really help other people kind of bridge that gap. Yeah.
You're working with student athletes. Tell me a little bit about how that works and what your duties are.
I tell you, I couldn't be happier. First off, I think I've really hit the lottery trifecta when it comes to working for individuals. The 3 leaders that I directly report to. First off, Josie Nicholson. She and I worked together at the counseling center here at Ole Miss when I was doing my internship, and we just gelled real well together. And then Shannon Singletary, both of our direct report. He and I have been deacons together in a local church, and Shannon is absolutely top notch. And then to have Keith Carter as our AD, I can't think of someone that epitomizes leadership more than he does. So that's absolutely awesome. I've been working in drug and alcohol because that kind of was natural for me to fall into, getting help for my own addiction. And then also worked some with folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and then also community mental health. So kind of had a good well-rounding there, but there was always something missing. And Shannon and Josie have teased me for about 3 years about, we're going to open up another position and we really think you would fit. And I'm thinking that would be just absolutely the bomb, really. And now that I'm working with them, it's almost like being back in the military because they really do have the similar mindset. They're warriors. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what sport they're playing. These folks are here to win. They're here to crush the enemy. And I really enjoy that that spirit of intensity. And it puts me right back into kind of that similar situation of being a part of that warrior team. And I really like that.
There's a lot of similarities in sports and military in that regard. Obviously, military is life or death in a lot of cases and all, but it does seem like the structure is important, obviously, for both. Bryan, let me ask you this. As fans, and I consider myself pretty much a fan, we think our kids are perfect, invincible, never have a bad day. They're playing the sport that they love. And I've traveled with them for so many years, and I'll run into one in a hotel lobby or somewhere. And I could just tell by their body language that they're not having a great day. And y'all are dealing with that on a daily basis. I'm just thinking it's something small, no big deal. But there's a lot of things out there that our student athletes have to deal with in addition to being the best possible athlete they can be, right?
That's absolutely correct. So many people think of our student athletes as being spoiled and pampered and, they get all of the good stuff. We give them so much attention. We give them so much stuff. But most people don't understand what it is to be a student athlete. Not only do you have to excel in the classroom and on the playing field, whatever that playing field is, but you have a schedule that goes from very early morning to very late at night, and it's constant go, go, go under the microscope. Everybody wants their pound of flesh. You have to please everybody, and that becomes overwhelming. That need to perform in all of these different ways and to look perfect when everybody's looking at you, that can just absolutely be overwhelming. And they will walk into my office feeling kind of overwhelmed and maybe hopeless and just depressed and sad. And the beautiful thing is, when they walk in here, we quickly disarm their whatever mindset they have of, oh, you're going to fix me or whatever. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to walk beside you and help you kind of figure out how to handle this huge load that's on your shoulders. It's very rewarding when they identify with that. And I will share my addiction with them to a degree, and I'll share past military experiences with them a little bit. But they tend to walk out of here feeling a whole lot better than when they walked in. And our athletes are not perfect. Now, in my eyes, they're pretty dadgum good, but they're not perfect, just like you and me. Now, we're going to make mistakes. We do and say wrong things. And every now and again, an athlete may even succumb to drinking to excess, or maybe even trying marijuana or some other enhancement drugs. And part of my job, one of the reasons I was hired, was to kind of educate those that are having difficulties in that area about the ills of, especially cannabis. Everybody thinks that's so normal. Mm-hmm. But just smoking cannabis itself, it narrows your arteries and your veins, and it doesn't allow the oxygen to pump through. So it detracts from your performance. It detracts from your ability in the classroom, on the field, and in your sleep and in your nutrition. And what they just don't understand is the disconnect. You smoke a little pot and you feel good. You feel comfortable. You feel relaxed. Mm-hmm. But what happens is it builds, and it actually increases anxiety, causes your sleep to be problematic. It causes your nutrition to be problematic, and your performance in every area of your life, especially on the playing surface. And to be able to educate them to that and watch them successfully say, no, that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. That is not my brand. That's rewarding. And to watch these guys lift themselves up and then go back to their teams and lift them up too and say, hey guys, I found a better way. You don't need to do that. And educate them, but that's not helpful. And, if you get caught and you have to call your parents, or you have to talk to the AD or to your coach because you got caught smoking marijuana, that's not fun. And that's not an experience. I help them try to think forward. If I do this, what are going to be the consequences? Not, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to feel good, and we'll deal with it tomorrow. Because that doesn't always work out too well. So it's very rewarding to have them come in with their bag full of problems and walk out. They still got their bag full of problems, but now they also have a bag full of tools that they can use to help take care of those problems.
We're visiting with Bryan Simmons, who's an athletics counselor, and just a great conversation. And Bryan, it's really interesting too, because coaches in their bios will have great players listed. He helped so-and-so become an All-American. He helped so-and-so get to the NFL, and that's good. I get all that. But in your world, you've got those same people. But from a privacy standpoint, obviously we don't want to, constantly expose people and show different struggles that they've had. But you've got to have, I would think, some tremendous satisfaction on a list of folks, even the short time that you've been at Ole Miss to this point, that you are got to be really gratifying and satisfied that you were able to help them.
Absolutely. In any atmosphere where you're a helping person, whether it's through your church or community or wherever, that's always satisfying. But there seems to be a real intense satisfaction of helping these kids that feel so overwhelmed when they walk in your office and they spend 50 minutes in here and they walk out with a smile on their face most of the time, not always. But to get there, they go through a lot of crying and sadness and dealing with that stuff and really exposing it so that we can work on it. It's absolutely gratifying to take a person that is so closed and doesn't think there's any help to going, I now have hope. Mm-hmm. That maybe I can have a little bit more peace in my life and get rid of some of this anxiety, reduce it to a degree, manage it, if you will. Yes, that's extremely gratifying.
Well, and the levels can be just having a bad day to all the way to, thoughts of suicide, et cetera. And I know that you guys deal with some of that to some extent too. And it's an area that a lot of times, like I mentioned, as fans, we just don't think it's necessary or, they're invincible. And even the players themselves, I would think that there's times that they feel like they're invincible, but they're really not.
I'm glad you brought that up because, we have such a stigma around suicide, and people just really do have their head in the sand when it comes to that. That is a wonderful, great player. How can he be having any problems? She is an awesome athlete. How can she be having any problems? And we can't even begin to think that they might be thinking about taking their own life. They've seen and heard about other people that have done it, and they think, oh God, just to be out of this life would be so relieving. And for a moment, they experience a moment where it's real for them. And then they can come in and talk to us, and we're not hiding anything. We're talking about it like it's today's dinner menu. And they have this overwhelming sense of, okay, so I'm not crazy. I'm not going nuts. It is okay to talk about it. This is normal. This is natural. We get overwhelmed. And then in my own experience, I can share, my own suicidality period. And they can look at me and go, no way. You were suicidal? What did you do? How did you get to where you are? And, help them understand it's not a overnight process. This is a process that takes time. Now, I started my journey in recovery from alcoholism and depression 19 years ago. I didn't just get here overnight, but if we stay on that journey and we employ some of the tools that we give them, use some of the methods, and we do a lot of mindfulness and meditation and thoughtfulness. So many times people come in and have a negative conversation, a negative self-talk. I'm no good. I'm not fast enough. I'm not whatever enough. And then they come in here and we change that self-talk to, you know what? I got to learn to be okay being me. I want to be able to look in the mirror and say, you're good enough. And to be able to see that light come on and know that I don't want to kill myself anymore, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no doubt. And man, just incredible to think about those needs that sometimes we overlook. Bryan, I had Josie and Dr. Crowther and Shannon all in this segment kind of close out. I'm going to let you do the same thing. But sort of a degree of encouragement or some advice to just the general population like us, that we've got these new barriers. COVID-19 obviously is something we wish would all of us wish would quote go away. But with your background and all, what is your advice to just the general public about dealing with this type of anxiety?
We need to reduce the stigma. I'm real proud of Helinski's Hope. I'm real proud to support them. Being able to talk about their own son going through this as what I call a tier 1 athlete. If you're, as a general population, if you have that radar feeling that something's not right with somebody, ask the question. Don't walk away. I like to say, explore it. Don't ignore it. Mm-hmm. If you have any thought that someone's just maybe not right today or over a period of time, say something. Say, hey, I've noticed you've been a little sad lately, or I noticed you haven't been yourself lately, it doesn't seem. Can you tell me what's going on? Trust me, I'm not gonna go, crazy. I'm not gonna overreact. I want to help you. And if a person says, yeah, I've been sad, ask the next question. Well, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? People are so afraid to ask that question. And it remains taboo when we don't ask the question. When we ask it, it wipes out that taboo. It normalizes it. It allows a person to go, wow, they're not afraid to talk about this. Mm-hmm. Because everybody thinks we're afraid to talk about it because we're afraid to talk about it. The more we talk about it, the more open the other person will be, and the more open they'll be to getting help. And then you can say, hey, well, how about I help you get some help? So if you see that there's something wrong, ask, explore it, and then take it the next step and say, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Hey, let me help you get help. 3 steps, real simple. Don't walk away going, well, I hope they'll be okay. And then find out later that they killed themselves or harmed themselves seriously, and you will be left with that regret thinking, I should have said something. I don't ever want to walk away or wake up tomorrow and hear something that makes me go, I should have said something. Ask the question.
Yeah, that is great advice. And a lot of times I would think that we'd walk away with that regret if we don't. So it's good to be bold in that sense. Hey, listen, you guys are doing an incredible job. And like I said earlier, I know that you can't really share a lot of success stories by name at least, but we do know that there are a lot of needs out there from our student athletes that go way beyond just trying to run faster, jump higher, score. But I would think when you're sitting in the stands and watching a game, you can point to some people and say, hey, I helped him. Or
absolutely.
No doubt.
Absolutely. I don't coach them to be a better athlete. I coach them to be a better person.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that gives me great satisfaction knowing that they can perform both in their sport and in their life.
Bryan, thanks so much. That is awesome. I appreciate you.
Thank you, DK.
Yeah, look forward to getting rid of this COVID so we can hang out again, and visit with each other instead of being Zooming all the time.
Amen.
That wraps up this week's Reb Talk. Thank you very much. Have a great 4th of July weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Howdy, toddy.